In the glittering history of Golden Age Hollywood, few names shine as brightly and as differently as Gene Kelly and Greta Garbo. One danced across the screen with revolutionary athleticism and warmth, the embodiment of American energy and charm. The other moved like a shadow in moonlight, elegant, distant, and wrapped in a mystique that has never fully lifted. They never starred in a film together. In fact, their peak eras didn't quite overlap, but both changed the way audiences saw cinema and what it meant to be a star. Let's begin with Greta Garbo, the Swedish enigma who became Hollywood's most alluring and mysterious actress. Born in Stockholm in 1905 as Greta Lovisa Gustafsson, she came from humble beginnings. She trained at the Royal Dramatic Theatre before catching the eye of director Moritz Stiller, who introduced her to silent film. It didn't take long for Hollywood to notice. Garbo arrived in the United States in the mid-1920s, and from her first appearance in Torrent in 1926, she captivated audiences. Even in silence, she spoke volumes. Her face could carry entire scenes with a glance, and her performances were filled with subtle emotion and inner life. In a time when acting was often exaggerated for the camera, Garbo was still, calm, controlled, and captivating. By the time Flesh and the Devil and Love hit theaters, Garbo was a full-fledged star. She had something no other actress quite possessed, an almost mythical quality, a presence that felt untouched by ordinary life. Her eyes, so expressive, so full of longing, became her signature. When talkies arrived in the late 1920s, many stars faded. Garbo didn't. In fact, her first sound film, Anna Christie, was marketed with the tagline, "Garbo Talks." And talk she did, with a deep, resonant voice that only added to her allure. In films like Queen Christina, Camille, and Anna Karenina, Garbo portrayed tragic heroines with grace and nuance. Her performances were emotionally rich, yet never sentimental. She maintained a kind of emotional distance that made her both magnetic and unknowable. She was famously private. She avoided interviews, never signed autographs, and rarely attended premieres. Her mottos seemed to be the same as her most quoted line, "I want to be alone." Whether it was a true desire or a protective mask, the mystery only fueled her legend. Garbo's retreat from Hollywood was just as enigmatic as her presence within it. In 1941, at the age of 36, after the failure of Two-Faced Woman, she walked away from acting and never returned. She lived out the rest of her life quietly, rarely appearing in public, never granting interviews, and refusing all comeback offers. Now shift the spotlight to Gene Kelly, born in Pittsburgh in 1912. He was the very opposite of Garbo in energy, style, and screen persona. Where she was ethereal and distant, he was bold, athletic, and full of life. While Garbo left audiences guessing, Kelly invited them to dance with him in the rain. Kelly didn't start out in Hollywood. He studied economics, taught dance to make ends meet, and eventually made it to Broadway. Hollywood came calling after his success in Pal Joey, and in 1942, he made his film debut opposite Judy Garland in For Me and My Gal. It was a new era, and Gene Kelly would be one of its brightest stars. At a time when musicals were dominated by the elegant Fred Astaire, Kelly brought something radically different, an American, masculine physicality that changed the way dance looked on screen. He didn't float, he exploded. Every movement had power, control, and emotion. In Anchors Away, On the Town, An American in Paris, and most famously, Singin' in the Rain, Kelly created sequences that were cinematic magic, joyful, expressive, and technically groundbreaking. Singin' in the Rain, released in 1952, is perhaps the greatest movie musical of all time. Kelly's iconic dance in the rain, joyfully stomping through puddles, twirling around lampposts, was more than a number. It was a celebration of what cinema could be, expressive, alive, and transcendent. But Kelly wasn't just a performer. He was a visionary behind the camera. As a choreographer and director, he revolutionized how dance was filmed. He insisted that the full body be shown in long takes, rather than chopped up with quick cuts. He integrated movement with story in a way no one had before. In An American in Paris, the final 17-minute ballet sequence was unlike anything audiences had seen, ambitious, surreal, and emotional. He helped elevate the movie musical into serious art. And where Garbo hid from the spotlight, Kelly embraced it. He was charming in interviews, beloved by fans, and always thinking about the next project. His style wasn't mysterious. It was open, generous, and full of heart. Despite their differences, Kelly and Garbo shared one key quality. They elevated their genres. Garbo took the melodrama and made it high art. Kelly did the same for musicals. Both challenged what audiences expected. Both refused to be ordinary. Let's take a moment to reflect on what made Garbo's mystery so enduring. She wasn't a recluse just for the sake of being different. She understood that mystique was power. In an age of publicity machines and studio-controlled images, Garbo chose silence. And in that silence, she became myth. She was not interested in being relatable. She wanted to remain timeless. And it worked. Her image was so powerful that decades after her last film, she remained a symbol of elegance. In contrast, Kelly's power came from presence. He brought dance to the streets, to sailors, to everyman characters. He wasn't a distant star. He was someone you felt you knew. If you had enough courage, you could dance like him. He made it feel possible. But make no mistake, what he did was extraordinary. Both stars were perfectionists. Garbo was notorious for her control over her roles, demanding reshoots and even getting directors replaced. She was not a puppet of the studio system. She was its exception. Kelly, too, was a tireless worker. He rehearsed endlessly, trained in multiple styles of dance, and pushed his co-stars to match his intensity. Debbie Reynolds, who starred with him in Singin' in the Rain, once said the two hardest things she ever did were childbirth and working with Gene Kelly. They were both artists in the truest sense. They didn't just perform, they crafted. They made choices that shaped their films and elevated their peers. Let's also acknowledge the sacrifices. Garbo gave up public life to protect her privacy. She may have been lonely, but she stayed true to her need for solitude. Kelly faced challenges, too, especially as musicals declined in the late 1950s. He struggled to find the same success in dramatic roles and turned increasingly to choreography, direction, and television. But he never stopped creating. One wonders what might have happened if these two legends had crossed paths professionally. Could Garbo have been drawn into a musical world? Could Kelly have directed her in a dramatic, movement-based film that explored her interior life through dance? It's a tantalizing thought, the blending of movement and mystery, of motion and stillness. But perhaps their separation is what makes them even more special. Garbo represents the mysterious past of cinema, black and white, silent, haunting. Kelly symbolizes the vibrant, technicolor present, alive, musical, joyful. Together, they tell the story of how Hollywood evolved from shadow to spotlight. Both won the hearts of audiences worldwide. Garbo never won a competitive Oscar, though she received an honorary one in 1955. Kelly, too, received an honorary Oscar in 1952 for his contribution to the art of film dance. They were admired by peers, celebrated by critics, and loved by fans. Garbo died in 1990, having not acted in nearly 50 years. She left behind a legacy of fewer than 30 films, but each one etched into cinema history. Her influence can be seen in modern stars who value privacy, who resist overexposure, who want their work to speak louder than their words. Kelly passed away in 1996, having danced through more than half a century of film history. His style, his energy, and his belief in dance as storytelling live on in choreographers and performers who followed, from Broadway to music videos to film. In the end, Greta Garbo and Gene Kelly stand as two poles of cinematic magic, one shrouded in mystery, the other bursting with light. One a silent queen, the other a singing, dancing pioneer. They remind us that cinema is vast, that it holds room for mystery and joy, elegance and movement, silence and song. They remind us that stars are not born. They're made, frame by frame, with passion, talent, and an unshakable vision. Garbo wanted to be alone. Kelly wanted to bring everyone together on the dance floor. And somehow, both succeeded. Their stories are part of the great tapestry of film. A tapestry that still dazzles, still moves, still inspires.